WWT presents Briefings.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joshua Hogan. I'm a technical solutions architect in WWT's core routing practice. What I'm going to talk to you really quickly about today is our core routing practice, the technologies and components that we cover. Typically, what are the things that we think of as being involved in core routing? What I want to draw your attention to is at this first slide, there are three different levels, and we're going to talk about this as a hierarchy. So there's a base of technologies, which we consider the underlay that I'll talk about. Upon the underlay, you build services, specifically carrier services. And then on top of those services, you might do more advanced traffic engineering. So first and foremost, we have this hierarchy. Let's dive right in by talking specifically about what we mean when we say underlay routing or underlay transport technologies. The first thing you're always going to need in a core routed network is an interior routing protocol. These are almost always going to be either IS to IS or OSPF, specifically because of the algorithm that they use and the way that they communicate routing information with one another. It serves the upper layers that we're going to talk about much better than other routing protocols. So again, IS to IS and OSPF, those are typically the interior routing protocols that we would use. There are some other technologies that are really important to the underlay. MPLS, which is multi-protocol label switching. You have LDP, which is label distribution protocol. And of course, segment routing has become very popular in recent years. All of these technologies revolve around transport. So they're transport mechanisms. For example, in the case of MPLS, you're doing fast switching rather than routing at the IP layer. With LDP, you're exchanging prefix to label binding information between neighbors and across your network. So all of these different things are being used to create an underlay where your network knows how to get around itself. It maps itself out and knows how to get from one side of the network to the other in an efficient way. And then on top of that kind of foundation, we're going to do more interesting things. I mentioned before, carrier services is typically the starting point there. So what we're talking about here when we say carrier services, it's the ability to provide a useful service to organizations or entities that exist just off of the core routed network. The first thing that you're going to do is typically look at protocols like BGP, Border Gateway Protocol, extremely popular, extremely standardized. There are other specific technologies in here, all of which revolve around the signaling of these services. So what that means is from 2 points on the network, which are typically far away, separated by multiple routers or multiple nodes, they're going to want to signal to each other, hey, we have some services that we need to share with each other. That's going to be transporting an entity's traffic or a customer's traffic across the network. So to do that signaling of those services, these are some of the key technologies that will typically be included. And at a higher level, you can think of the types of services as things you might have heard like layer 3 VPN, layer 2 VPN, right? So that really has to do with, are you providing a service across your network at the IP layer? Or is it a direct point-to-point pseudo-wire at layer 2? Or maybe it's even multi-point layer 2, where you're presenting multiple points in your network as a service to a customer who views your entire core routed network as a simple switch that they're plugging into wherever they are. Above that, once you've established carrier services, now you can start to do things like traffic engineering. A lot of times this is where our team might spend the most time when it comes to providing consultancy and expertise and really ideation around what you can do, because the sky's the limit when it comes to traffic engineering in a core routed network, especially in the dawn of segment routing. So one of the most common, and I might not say the most common, but one of the most popular right now technologies that's a core part of core routed networks is segment routing traffic engineering, or SRTE. So this is using segment routing in order to inform the way that paths travel through the network. You can engineer and architect them to do various things. You also have things like flexible algorithm and egress peer engineering, all of which basically are these path manipulator tools that you have at your disposal. You also have above that software control. So thinking about programmatically controlling the network, again, that's relatively popular nowadays. We want to be able to do things with intent. We want to be able to assign intent to policy that then gets enforced by software. This helps us to standardize the way that the network behaves, allows us to make the network more resilient and automated. it gives us better control of all of those mechanisms. So whether it's software-defined networking or SDN, bandwidth on demand, which is sometimes termed bandwidth brokerage in this space. The idea there, again, is all around automation of these underlying systems, whether you're automating the underlying transport, automating your carrier services, or your various path mechanisms that you're using. It's all about putting more and more of that into software. So again, this is just a high-level view of what some of the components of core routing are. There are much more than this. This is kind of how we view it, as a three-step hierarchy in order to achieve, a true IP MPLS core routed network. And that's really it. So those are the primary components of a core routed network. There are many, many more components, but these are the main ones that we feel are important to showcase this three-level hierarchy or way of thinking about it. That first, you build an underlay to the network. Upon that underlay, you're able to establish important carrier services, which are the main thing that the core routed network should be doing. And then on top of that, you're able to traffic engineer in an effective and useful way. If you want help with any of these technologies or others to do with the core routed space, you can always reach out to our team at corenetworkinghelp@wwt.com, or you can go to the wwt.com platform and look up any of our briefings and workshops to reach out to us further. We'd love to help. Thanks so much.